Here's my top 10 Wii Sports Resort easiest and hardest stamps with some honourable mentions. Number 10 easy, Ringmaster, Power Cruising. Starting off fairly bland with this stamp, the goal is to ride through all the bonus point gates in any course. Obviously choosing beach for this, it's really nothing too special. All of the gates are flat with the water and require minimal turning. There's no time requirement either, so if you're struggling, you can crawl up to the gates in order to align yourself correctly. It's up at number 10 as there are multiple gates you have to go through in a single run, and the turning within Power Cruising can be difficult to learn for newer players. Number 9 easy, Sure Shot, Archery. This stamp requires you to land every arrow on the target during the course of a game. Obviously you choose a beginner difficulty for this, and I think the only target that can cause you some problems is in the final stage. Just make sure to take notice of the wind and plan your shot accordingly. It doesn't matter what score you get, but the fact that the stamp's criteria spreads across a whole game is why it's only at number 9. Our first honourable mention goes to Bull Stampede, where you have to perfect one stage. Obviously you want to pick stage 1 of beginner, and it's just a case of deciding which is easier, 3 perfect but easy shots, or 12 completely average shots. Number 8 easy, Super Strike 100 pin. Only one strike is needed for the stamp, but the difficulty of getting it could be underestimated. Throwing the ball straight can work, but is very inconsistent, so you need to use some hook and curve the ball towards the pocket to get all the pins down. Getting a strike is also key to getting many of the stamps in the mode. Very quick to get, but does require skill. Number 7 easy, Perfectly Matched, Table Tennis Match. There are many stamps in the game that focus on triggering special events rather than difficulty, and this is one of them. You need to draw with the opponent, and you'll likely be going out of your way to get this stamp. The easiest way is to go for it as early as possible against the weakest CPUs, like Cole. Then the only challenge becomes, can you win a point on command? Sure, you need to score 20 whole points, but actually getting these takes minimal swings and effort. Number 6 easy, Island Hopper, Island Flyover. You only need to hit one Wedge Island eye point to get this stamp. If you don't already know where Wedge Island is on your first play session, after consulting the map at the end and the stamp's description, it will become immediately apparent. Once you know, you can dedicate a run to reaching Wedge Island and you'll get the stamp no problem. If you're already familiar with Woohoo Island, this stamp could go way lower on the list, but I'm trying to take this from a brand new player's perspective. Number 5 easy, Huge Air, Wakeboarding. You have 2 entire minutes to build up enough momentum to execute a single 100-point jump and land it successfully. The process of achieving this and balancing the remote correctly can be somewhat involved, as you still need to work your way up to reaching the 100-point jump, but consistency is the main skill of wakeboarding, which you just don't need to achieve this stamp. Number 4 easy, Good Dog, Frisbee Dog. You may think that angling the Frisbee to reach the 100-point area will be challenging, but not only do you have 10 attempts, the jump catch can actually help prevent the Frisbee from overshooting. It's honestly harder to get 100 points without a jump catch. Number 3 easy, One for All, Spin Control. Just one pin on every frame. Not only can you play super safely, you'll even have 2 attempts per frame to hit one measly pin. It doesn't even matter which pin you hit. And if you wanted to make it a little bit harder and make the pin actually matter, hit the head pin on every frame and you'll get a second stamp. I get Spin Control as the hard mode of bowling, but come on. Number 2 easy, Cliffhanger, Swordplay. Another stamp that focuses on spectacle over difficulty. Another stamp based around a tie. Tie after 3 rounds to trigger the tiebreaker, where you fight in the inner ring. Win, lose, tie, or tie, tie, tie. All this stamp requires is that you reach this stage. It doesn't even matter if you lose from here. Very easy to control when you're playing a low difficulty CPU. Like with Spin Control, by adding an extra touch of difficulty, you can actually snag yourself 4 out of the 5 stamps in just 2 matches. Win the final duel in one swing, you get a stamp. If that one swing is a lunge, you get another stamp. If you use the triple tie method, tie again in the tiebreaker for the 4th stamp. We could put them all on this list, but I didn't want half the list to be duel. The easiest stamp in Wii Sports Resort is Psychic Slice, Speed Slice. The easiest stamp in Wii Sports Resort serves as a nice callback to one of the easiest Platinum Medals in Wii Sports. Dodging in Wii Sports could be cheesed by repeatedly pausing over and over to increase your reaction time to the balls thrown. Well, in Psychic Slice, we're doing it again for a stamp. Pause buffering can be used here, and it's even easier to do than in Wii Sports due to a lack of motion-based requirements that the original had. You can then read the direction required as it comes into view, unpause, then swing. You have a lot of attempts in a single round to get this. This is the easiest way to play Speed Slice, and surprisingly manages to make it even more boring to play than usual. Number 10 hard, Untouchable, Swordplay Showdown. If we're already starting off the hard list with a perfect game, you can tell how difficult many of Resort stamps can be. Untouchable requires you to beat the final stage without taking damage. First of all, this stamp is a pretty big time commitment, given that you have to beat the previous 19 levels in order to even tackle this stage. But then we get to tackling the stamp itself. You may think the giant bosses at the end are the guys to end your run, but it's actually the complete opposite. Do not underestimate the determination of the one-heart soldiers. Some of them will kamikaze and do whatever it takes to ensure that you do take damage. They'll attempt to attack you the exact moment you get into range, and if you're not blocking correctly, you will get hit. However, it is at number 10 as there are plenty of strategies you can do to gain a huge advantage. First is block cancelling. I made a short on this trick, but basically if you press the block button as your swing makes contact, the swing will go through the opponent's block and register as a hit. The second thing is to remember that only the enemy labelled can attack you. You want to maximise the amount of hits you get on other players when they are merely circling you. You can do this by following through on every swing to knock out multiple people in one blow, or more interestingly, breaking the entire script. You can control the speed of your Mii. When you are near a person and swing frantically, you'll dash forward into them. If you swing when no one is around, your Mii will stop in place. If you keep stalling for long enough, for some reason the labelled opponent refuses to come fight you. You can then get a bunch of hits on other enemies for free. Use a combination of all these techniques and the stamp is a lot more manageable. Number 9 hard, 200 point dive, Skydiving. A pretty difficult stamp in a very underplayed sport for myself. Unlike Untouchable, this stamp requires a lot more fundamental skill in order to achieve, rather than having access to cheese. 200 points is a really nice final target that ensures you don't get it until you have a run planned out, but it's not impossibly far away. The main thing you need to know for this stamp is how to reduce downtime. By this point you'll know how to get decently big scores by making sure to get perfect catches and facing the camera and hitting the rings at the end. But what separates that and the stamp is your forward thinking. Not only do you have to focus on getting these catches, but you also want to be scouting out the nearest groups to fly to next. You can then steer your current group to them during the shooting process, so by the time you finish taking a picture, you're immediately back to grabbing more people. That is the main key to this stamp. No easy strats, but not the most difficult stamp, hence why it's at number 9. Number 8 hard, a secret to everybody, Archery. Be honest, how many of you actually found all 12 secret targets of your own merit? Even if you do figure out where they all are without consulting outside sources, you still have to hit them, and none of them are really that easy. Luckily you get 3 shots per attempt, and you only have to hit each one once, but the widespread nature of the stamp spanning every stage in every difficulty, plus the explorative and executional skills needed to hit each one, puts this at number 8. Number 7 hard, Golden Arm, Frisbee Dog. Things really start to pick up now. Our second perfect game of the list, this time for Frisbee Dog. On the surface, hitting every balloon whilst also nailing every throw into the centre circle should be a contender for the hardest stamp in the game. However, there's one utterly bizarre Frisbee Dog feature that feels like a horrible accident on Nintendo's part. No joke, by pressing A and 2 at the same time on a level with a balloon. These are legitimate points too, so all this just turns into is the previous stamp, Perfect Target, where you need to land in the centre circle on every throw. Not an easy task by any means, you're still dealing with Frisbee controls, but had potential of being one of the hardest stamps in the game. Number 6 hard, Straight and Narrow, Frisbee Golf. From one Frisbee mode to another, Straight and Narrow is the most deceptive of them all on this list. I also made a short on this, but the goal is to complete the 18-hole course without landing in a hazard. This sounds super straightforward, but you have to remember, we're playing Frisbee here. These courses are not designed for discs, they're designed for regular golf first and foremost. You're controlling a lot more with motion controls than in regular golf. The main problems you'll come across are holes with large bodies of water, steep slopes, small islands you need to reach, and short par 3s. This would be somewhat manageable, however holes 17 and 18, the final ones over 20 minutes into a run, combine many of these problems together, and if you fail, it's right back to the beginning. What you need for this stamp is the right mindset. Don't try to go for birdies or pars if you don't need to. If you know you won't make a throw, don't try it. Do whatever it is you can to reduce that risk by performing extra throws for safety. Going to overshoot an island? Go backwards. Think you'll hit something? Edge your way around it. Some holes you'll have to nail as there's no other way, like hole 7, but as long as you complete every hole within the stroke limit, you'll get the stamp. Number 5 hard, Sharpshooter, Archery. The perfect game for archery, a bullseye on every arrow. The saving grace of this stamp is that you only have to do it in one course, but even in beginner this can be one hell of a challenge, especially the precision needed for stage 3 and 4. There is one strat that can help for archery that I call thigh strats. Hear me out. To aim, you need to tilt the Wii remote around, and doing this whilst holding the remote can make the aim very unstable. What you want to do is sit down and jam the Wii remote between your legs. This is going to practically remove all of that wobbling. Then you can operate the remote like a flight stick to change your angle. It sounds stupid, looks stupid, but it works. For the final stage, it's actually easier to get the secret target than to hit the bullseye, as it's a bigger 10-point target to aim for, and you're already dealing with long distances and strong winds. There's not many combinations of winds to worry about, unlike golf, so eventually you'll have a setup down for every wind combination. This was actually the final stamp I got in the entire game, so you might be surprised to see it at number 5. Number 4 hard, Pure Shooter, Basketball 3-point contest. I absolutely thought this stamp was going to be the hardest in the game, but on reflection, it's definitely not. A beyond perfect game is needed for this stamp, all 30 points and 15 seconds left on the clock. Luckily there is a strat for consistent 3-pointers, probably the most famous strat in all of Wii Sports Resort, Garrett's strat. The premise is that if you release the ball as far to one direction as possible, then throw the ball all the way in the other, the directions will cancel out and you'll sink the shot. Actually achieving this with the right height, power and B button release timing is usually what's overlooked. I struggled on and off for over a year to figure out how to replicate the strat, until it eventually just clicked. It's really one of those things some people can just do immediately, and some people need a lot of trial and error, and I was the latter. It sounds cliche, but you just have to do what you feel is right. There's no one big trick for consistency. As long as you keep a steady rhythm to your shots, you should be able to achieve the speed requirement. Number 3 hard, Balloonatic, Island Flyover. By far the biggest minimum time requirement needed to get a stamp. You need to find every single unique balloon in all 3 times of day, and some of these balloons are hidden in the most random of places. Your only saving graces for these are 1, the unpopped balloons are coloured white, and every unneeded balloon is not, and 2, when you get near the end of your journey, the game will tell you how many balloons are left to go. That's all you get. Each time of day also puts balloons in different locations, so it's not just a case of copying what you did for every attempt. The act of popping balloons is obviously not hard, but you need some incredible observational and planning skills in order to get this stamp. Number 2 hard, Cut the Red Tape, Canoeing. This really does tick every single box for what makes a stamp difficult. A self-underplayed sport, a completionist style stamp, and difficult to tell if you're doing the right strats. You have to make it to the red tape in every difficulty mode, and the time restriction is absolutely mental. I struggle to believe Intermediate and Expert were playtested at all. The main issue here is that canoeing is an extremely intricate sport to control, and going fast requires so many different factors, too many to even list. I will be extremely impressed if you can get the stamp in single player, because my main tip is to play the game in multiplayer. This is because the more players you have, the faster you can make the canoe travel. And when I say players, all I mean is that you control multiple characters by yourself using multiple remotes. Some people like to tape their remotes together to create one jumbo controller, but the main goal is to have multiple characters doing the same inputs. I only have 2 working Wii remotes, so this may be playing into the reason why I found this stamp so demanding. If you have 4 remotes, it's obviously going to make the stamp twice as easy as what you see. But don't be fooled, this isn't an easy fix or solution. You still need an in-depth knowledge of speed, steering, hazard awareness and routing in order to reach the tape in time. Having a speedometer would have done wonders to this sport, as it would have been very easy to diagnose speed issues, but instead, all I can say is, use exaggerating motions, hold the Wii remote as high up as you can, and make sure the paddle makes deep strokes through the water. And you have to do this for 3 separate courses of increasing difficulty. It's all come down to this, the hardest stamp in Wii Sports Resort, and that is... Ace of Clubs, Golf. Achieving a score of -18. Taking straight and narrow from Frisbee golf, simplifying the gameplay but making it a requirement to make almost 0 natural mistakes across a 20-minute single run, or having to start from the very beginning and lose all of your progress. This is just beyond painful. You're looking at an average of a birdie per hole, but for the majority of said holes, this is going to be the best score you're going to get. It's what you're intended to get. But for this stamp, you'll definitely need a couple of eagles to give yourself something to fall back onto. Hole 17, for example, can be almost impossible to birdie if you get unlucky with the wind combinations. The best chances for eagles are on par 5s or hole 16, as sometimes you can reach the green early with shortcuts or favourable wind. You can also intentionally, or accidentally, score yourself a chip in on any other hole. Honourable mention in that case is for the hole-in-one stamp. Obviously extremely difficult to do, but something you'll eventually get after just playing the game for a while, especially if you're going for this bloody stamp. The overarching pressure as you get closer and closer to the end of the course, still on pace for the -18, can feel unbearable at times. But once you do get it, it's one of the best feelings you can get playing this game. This stamp is harder than canoeing, as at least in that, it's split into easily resettable chunks. But this is a gauntlet. There's not much that I can even suggest, as a lot of this stamp comes down to sheer experience, but there is at least a myriad of help available to you, especially in the Wii Series speedrunning Discord server, as many of the best score golfers are also there. Hell, Alnick has even managed to get -18 in a 9-hole course, which is just ridiculous. But for your average Joe getting this stamp for the first time, this is the pinnacle of difficulty. You've made it to the end! Thank you so much for watching. I have more videos planned for in the future, and both my collection of every stamp and this video ranking were possible thanks to your feedback on my Wii Sports Platinum Medal ranking video. Thank you also to Professor for introducing your audience to my channel, and I look forward to bringing you guys more educational Wii Sports content. Cheers!